close. I can't let him come close, man. I like this. I like this energy. I like this energy.
Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn found themselves in a heated confrontation in Riyadh ahead of Eubank's middleweight clash against Kamil Szeremeta.
Hey, Chris, don't f*** up the bag, son. Don't f*** up the bag. Don't f*** up the bag. Hey, don't f*** up the bag.
You would show up on the damn cutting weight, huh?
Of course. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, what, you like what? Like what? You're lucky you're fighting tomorrow. I'll fuck you up right now. Yeah.
You see, this guy comes in when I'm cutting weight.
Well, comes in when he comes. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow after the fight. I'll see you tomorrow after the fight.
You get in that ring.
Yeah, what? Get in that ring. I'll get in that ring and give it to you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, mate. You're fucking lucky you're fighting tomorrow. You're lucky, mate.
The two longtime rivals, whose anticipated fight in October 2022 was called off due to Benn's doping scandal, reignited their tension in the hotel lobby after the weigh-in for Eubank's undercard fight for the Beterbiev versus Bivol showdown.
Let's go you up. Yeah, kid. Let's go. Yeah.
Watch what happens.
Yeah, watch what happens. Dead boy walking, yeah? Dead boy walking, yeah? Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky you're fighting tomorrow and I need you to win.
Okay.
Yeah, you're lucky, so I'll give you a good ass beating in front of 60,000. That's what's going to happen. 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 I'll be there tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow night then. I'll see you tomorrow night then. Arrogant prick.
Just after the fight, walking past the so-called arena where this altercation happened, Chris Eubank Jr. talked about the fight and called it an action of a child.
Think about that little altercation, Chris.
Little. That is the key word in that sentence. Little kid.
Eddie Hearn was with his fighter at the time of the altercation. He was standing at the back and let all the drama take place. He expressed his excitement about the potential fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, emphasizing that it would be one of the biggest fights in all of boxing, not just in British boxing. Hearn hinted that the tension between the two fighters could escalate even further soon. He said, "You're talking about a mega fight. This fight's one of the biggest fights in boxing. Forget British boxing. And tomorrow night, don't be surprised to see him jump in the ring," and said about Chris Eubank Jr. Eddie Hearn further highlighted the intensity between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., stressing how deeply personal their rivalry has become. He added that the tension is so high that they are ready to attack each other whenever they meet, making it clear that when the fight finally happens, it will be a spectacle for the fans. He added, he wants to take his head off his shoulders. It's such a huge fight. They want to attack each other on sight at all times. Do you want a show? We'll give you a show. Eddie Hearn shared his thoughts on Chris Eubank Jr., acknowledging that while he finds Eubank Jr. entertaining and skilled at playing the game, he personally doesn't like him. Hearn mentioned that he finds Eubank Jr. socially awkward, but pointed out that this is part of what makes him appealing to boxing fans. He emphasized that the drama surrounding Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn is what keeps fans excited and eager for a real fight between them.
I think he's entertaining. I think he plays the game. Do I like him? I don't dislike him. I find him socially a little bit awkward. But this is what you love, isn't it? I mean, listen.
It's entertaining.
That's all. See that right there?
Yeah.
Do you know what that's done? That's giving you all a chirp in your pants. Yeah? And at the end of the day, you want to see those two in a real fight? Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Eddie Hearn discussed the challenge of making the fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr., emphasizing the difficulty due to their strong mutual dislike. Despite this challenge, Hearn stressed that the fight is the biggest in British boxing, with the potential to sell out Wembley Stadium and generate millions for both fighters.
Listen, because of how much they hate each other, it's always difficult. We've got plans to win championships at 147. Don't forget, Conor's got to go up 2 divisions to fight this guy. But if it was at 147, it would be a mismatch. Because Conor is, on every level, so much better than Chris Eubank Jr. But at 160, it's a very tough fight. But
because it's 2 weight classes above, and we've seen people try to move 2 weight classes above, and it hasn't worked out, is there like...
But what happens, Marcos, is the difference in ability, in my opinion, is substantial. So when you move up the divisions, you make it a fair fight. That's the only reason this is a tough fight, is because Conor's got to go to middleweight. He's not a middleweight. He's a big welter. But we'll do it because it's the biggest fight in British boxing. They're going to make millions and millions. We're going to sell out Wembley Stadium.
Conor Benn discussed the recent altercation with Chris Eubank Jr., addressing Eubank's claim that Benn confronted him while he was weight drained. Benn dismissed this as Eubank trying to spin the narrative for the media, pointing out that he wouldn't hesitate to confront Eubank head-on. Benn asserted that he wouldn't let Eubank walk over to him without reacting, and made it clear that he was ready to settle their differences immediately if necessary. Benn said, "That's him just selling it to the media that I pulled up on him while he's weight drained, and most people will fall for it. You want to come and start walking over to me? I'll meet you bang in the middle and I'll nip it in the bud right here, right now. You think I ain't gonna do nothing about it? At all." Conor Benn continued to address Chris Eubank Jr.'s claims, rejecting the idea that he confronted Eubank just because he was cutting weight. He dismissed Eubank's narrative as an attempt to gain sympathy and mockingly insulted him, calling him a sausage and joking about his appearance. He added, "Push that narrative that you know I pulled up on you while you're cutting weight. I don't give a what you are weighing. I don't care what you're weighing. You're still a sausage. You still got a massive head." Chris Eubank Jr. responded to accusations that his confrontation with Conor Benn was staged, firmly denying the idea. He expressed disbelief at the suggestion, questioning why he would want to stage a confrontation on the same day he was weighing in for a fight. Eubank Jr. pointed the finger at promoter Eddie Hearn, implying that Hearn might have orchestrated the entire incident to create a media buzz around their potential matchup.
Was that staged? Because that's what a lot of people are saying online. So you tell us.
Was it staged? I'm cutting weight. I'm starving myself. I'm dehydrating myself. Why on earth would I stage a confrontation with another man on the day when I'm weighing in? You know, it wasn't staged. It was a setup. Eddie Hearn probably set the whole thing up.
Chris Eubank Jr. continued to criticize Conor Benn for the timing of their confrontation, calling it an attempt at self-promotion. While acknowledging that the incident generated attention for their potential fight, Eubank expressed frustration at Benn for choosing to confront him while he was cutting weight the day before a fight.
It's great promotion for the fight, but at the end of the day, it shows you what type of guy this kid is. That he's gonna come and stand in front of me and push me while I'm cutting weight the day before I fight. What a coward. What a coward.
Chris Eubank Jr. further reflected on his altercation with Conor Benn, explaining how unfazed he felt during their confrontation. He used this moment to assert his confidence, stating that this lack of fear was a sign that he would dominate Benn when they finally met in the ring. Eubank confidently described Benn as an insect he was prepared to squash. He added, "I've never been so unafraid, so calm, so comfortable to be in front of another man who's trying to act like he's going to take my head off even though I'm starving and thirsty. I've never been so unbothered. You know, that's how I know I'm going to absolutely squash this insect." Chris Eubank Jr. reflected on the altercation with Conor Benn, explaining why he chose not to escalate the situation. He mentioned the physical toll of cutting weight, having gone without food or water for 2 days, and the risks that could come with engaging in a fight outside the ring. Eubank emphasized that risking injury after all the training and preparation for his upcoming fight wasn't worth it just to react to Benn's attempt at gaining attention. Instead, he was focused on what would happen when they finally met in the ring, confident that once the bell rang, the outcome would be different.
Well, I've got no food in my stomach for the last 2 days, no water, and I'm fighting tomorrow. What am I going to do? Risk an injury, risk all the training and the money I've got, getting cut or hurting my hand or something over some idiot who's trying to, make a little name for himself? Nah, he can push me all he wants. What's going to happen when that bell goes and we're standing in front of each other? It's going to be a whole different story then.
Eubank 35 arrived late to the scales for his middleweight fight in Saudi Arabia, and as he descended from the weigh-in area, he was met by Conor Benn, 28, who immediately launched into an aggressive verbal tirade. With boxing officials and hotel guests looking on, Benn took the first shot, shouting, "Don't f*** up the bag," alluding to the fact that the two might be on the verge of finalizing their long-awaited fight. Eubank, initially unfazed, responded with his typical calm demeanor as the exchange escalated. The confrontation quickly turned physical when the pair squared off nose to nose, with Benn saying, "You're lucky you're fighting tomorrow, or I would f*** up right now." Eubank Jr., responding to Benn's provocation, threw a quick jab back, remarking, "You see, this guy only comes in when I am cutting weight," referencing Benn's tendency to confront him when he's at his weakest. Benn, appearing rattled by the comment, promised, "I'll see you tomorrow after the fight." Eubank Jr. invited the confrontation, saying, "We will see. Let him come in close. I like this energy," before Benn pushed him. Their teams quickly stepped in to separate them. The back and forth didn't stop there, as Benn continued, "You are a kid," to which Eubank replied, "I am a kid that is going to f*** you up. Eubank then warned Ben to watch what happens, while Ben shot back, yeah, watch what happens. Dead boy walking. Before finally being pulled apart, Ben made sure to get the last word, telling Eubank, "You're lucky you're fighting tomorrow, and that I need you to win because I will give you a good-ass beating in front of 60,000. This encounter between Eubank Jr. and Ben has only intensified speculation that a future bout between the two is near, possibly reigniting the historic rivalry between their fathers, Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr., from 30 years ago. Frank Warren addressed the altercation between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, pointing out that before anything can happen between the two, Ben needs to get his boxing license reinstated. Warren noted that there is clearly animosity between the two fighters, but any further developments will depend on Ben resolving his licensing issues. He said, "What he's got to get his license first, you gotta be licensed. So, before he gets his license, we'll see what happens. There's no love lost there between the two of them." Warren highlighted the crucial issue of Conor Benn's licensing situation. He acknowledged the bad blood between Ben and Eubank Jr., but stressed that the fight can't happen until Ben's suspension is resolved and his license is reinstated. He added, "We'll see what happens. I think in the next couple of weeks that will all, one way or another, be resolved." Warren remained hopeful that the situation would be clarified within a few weeks, paving the way for a potential showdown between Ben and Eubank Jr. His statement suggests that boxing fans may soon get answers on whether the two rivals can meet in the ring. However, before any fight can materialize, Conor Benn must resolve the legal challenges stemming from his suspension by UK Anti-Doping (UKAD) and the British Boxing Board of Control (BBBOFC). Benn tested positive for clomiphene, a banned substance with performance-enhancing effects, in 2022, leading to the cancellation of his October 2022 fight with Eubank Jr. Despite his legal troubles, Ben continues to compete, with his last two victories in the US against Rodolfo Orozco and Peter Dobson. Nevertheless, his status remains unresolved in the UK, and he must clear these hurdles before the British Boxing Board of Control will consider reinstating his license to fight Eubank Jr. Eddie Hearn talked that Eubank was once the bigger name due to his achievements. This is no longer the case. Hearn suggested that Eubank is pursuing an imaginary fight with Canelo Alvarez, but what he truly needs is a fight with Conor Benn. Hearn didn't hold back, expressing his eagerness to see Eubank defeated. He said, "I have to be honest, we didn't need him, but he was the bigger name, I think, just because of his career, because of his achievements. But now I don't think that's the case at all. They've got the imaginary Canelo Alvarez fight. He needs to fight with Conor Benn." In the second part of his statement, Hearn added that while they could make Eubank wait, they were too eager to see him get beaten in the ring. He was enthusiastic about seeing Benn terrorize Eubank, possibly as soon as Saturday. Hearn made it clear that they wanted to see Eubank smashed to pieces, and could hardly wait for the opportunity to do so. He added, "If we didn't want to smash him to pieces, we'd probably make him wait and we'd starve him out, but we want to smash him to pieces, and I can't wait for him to get hold of him. Yeah, I can't wait for him to terrorize him. We might terrorize him on Saturday." The confrontation in Riyadh has left boxing fans eagerly anticipating a potential clash between the two rivals. However, all eyes are now on Benn's doping case, which needs to be resolved for this fight to officially take place. Before this altercation, Chris Eubank Jr. has been in highlights for other reasons too. Chris Eubank Jr. made headlines during a press conference ahead of the Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol fight, when he labeled boxing promoters Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn scumbags. Chris Eubank Jr. made headlines during the press conference for the Dimitri Bivol versus Artur Beterbiev event by openly criticizing several major boxing promoters. When asked why he had chosen to sign with Boxer, Eubank didn't mince words.
Why Boxer? Because every other promoter out here is a scumbag. That's why.
He launched into a tirade against Frank Warren, accusing him of deceit and referencing a previous legal dispute where Warren had sued him for a substantial sum, leaving a bitter stain on their relationship.
Frank Warren behind me, been lying and cheating his way through boxing for the last couple decades. Sued me for a couple $100,000 a few years ago, so obviously I was never going to go with him.
Eubank's long-standing issues with Warren stem from this legal battle, where Warren took him to court over a contract breach, forcing Eubank Jr. to pay significant damages. This legal action created an ongoing tension between them, influencing Eubank's decision to distance himself from Warren in his career. Additionally, Eubank took aim at Eddie Hearn, criticizing him for attempting to arrange a fight between him and Conor Benn, despite Benn failing a drug test in 2022. Eubank accused Hearn of pushing the fight forward, knowing the doping situation, and labeled his actions as highly unethical.
They did everything they could to try and make this fight against Conor Benn
We've got to listen to this scumbag.
Still go ahead.
Why do you fight Hamza Sherrod, scumbag?
After knowing that they, that he was on steroids. Scumbags.
This fiery press conference displayed Eubank's frustrations with the boxing industry and the promoters he believes have wronged him.
So we couldn't quite hear all what was being said. And the bottom line of it is very simple. He was sued by me for a legal breach of a contract, and I was successful in suing him, and he paid substantial damages.
Frank Warren found himself in a heated exchange with Chris Eubank Jr. during a press conference where Eubank made several inflammatory remarks. Warren, clearly angered by the comments, threatened legal action, insisting that any further publication of Eubank's insulting remarks would face legal consequences. He said, "I've given you an answer, and the answer is that will be dealt with, and it'll be dealt with legally, okay? And the outcome of it, I'm very, very, very sure what the outcome of it will be." Warren reiterated that anyone who repeated Eubank's defamatory claims would face the same legal consequences that Eubank had previously encountered when Warren sued him for breach of contract. He warned that similar lawsuits could follow, highlighting that Eubank had a history of making unfounded accusations against multiple individuals. He added, "Anybody who repeats it, as I said, they face the same consequences like he did last time. And you're talking to a guy, by the way, who has accused everybody on there of the same thing." Warren addressed Eubank's accusations, recalling that Eubank had fought multiple times on his shows, including on the undercard of Billy Joe Saunders, and had always been paid on time. He challenged Eubank to back up his claims, warning that failure to do so would result in significant legal repercussions. Warren said, "He's fought on my shows, he's fought on Billy Joe Saunders, and a couple other fighters' shows. Every show, every fight that he had, he was paid on time. So he needs to back up what he says. Otherwise, he's got a big problem." Frank Warren openly criticized Chris Eubank Jr. for his reluctance to face rising stars like Hamza Sherrod and Denzel Bentley. Warren expressed frustration that despite Eubank's experience and status in boxing, he has been choosing to fight lesser-known opponents without titles. According to Warren, this strategy is disappointing, especially when talents like Sherrod, who are eager and capable of challenging Eubank, are being overlooked. Warren emphasized that fighters like Sherrod are on the rise and would pose a worthy challenge, but Eubank has yet to take them on.
You know, he's not like he's some youngster. He's got next generation. He's 34 years of age, 35 this year. So, you know, there's some great domestic fights. You know, Denzel, as I just said, for Hamza, for him to fight one of them, but he doesn't want to know.
While many in the boxing world criticized Chris Eubank Jr. for his outspoken comments at such a major event, Johnny Nelson praised Eubank for having the courage to speak his mind during the controversial press conference. Nelson acknowledged that while many fighters likely share Eubank's sentiments, they often hold back out of fear of legal repercussions. He admired Eubank's willingness to stand by his words, calling it a bold move. Nelson said, "Regardless of whether you like what he said or not, so what? Chris did it because, you know what, I'm going to say my piece and he's different. He's different gravy, but I just smiled. I thought, oh." Nelson further praised Eubank for his bravery, noting that many fighters, past and present, likely wanted to do the same but lacked the nerve. He viewed Eubank's actions as a mic drop moment that left everyone stunned. He added, "I'm quite sure there have been many fighters, past, present, maybe future, that want to be able to do that, and Chris is the one that I know personally who's had the bottle to do it. So it was a proper mic drop, like, oh." Aid Oladipo discussed the recurring issue of contractual disputes in boxing, emphasizing how frequently fighters encounter challenges with managers and promoters. He pointed out that while larger cases involving high-profile fighters tend to gain media attention, many mid-level boxers face these struggles in silence. Due to a lack of visibility or platform, these fighters often find it much harder to speak out, leaving them vulnerable to unfavorable contract situations.
But I will say this about the contract thing, like boxing is littered with fighters having problems with managers and promoters. Littered. Like, there's ones that, obviously we know only the ones that are the elite fighters, right? And when they come out, I mean, look at the situation with Canelo and Oscar. Look at that, for example. So we only know the real big ones, but can you imagine the ones, sort of the mid-level ones? Imagine that, where fighters don't speak out, or if they do, they don't have the platform to speak out, so no one knows about it. Like, it must be horrendous. Fighters have to be so careful. honestly have to be so careful. And
Adi Oladipo discussed Chris Eubank Jr.'s independent nature and his tendency to do things his own way. He highlighted how difficult it is for anyone to control or manage Eubank, which has led to him working with various promoters and broadcasters throughout his career. Oladipo said, "Chris does what Chris does. Like, nobody can control Chris Eubank. Nobody. Honestly, nobody. Hence why he's moved around different promoters, different broadcasters, because if you don't see things the way Chris sees things, then he's going." Frank Smith, responding to Chris Eubank Jr.'s recent comments, refrained from engaging in a public back and forth. Instead, he expressed a preference for addressing the issue directly with Eubank in private and mentioned his intention to speak with him in Riyadh. Smith chose to handle the matter discreetly, showing a desire for resolution without public drama.
I'm not going to go tit for tat and, probably one on a personal level I deal with personally and have
spoken to him personally.
No, I haven't spoken to him. I will speak to him, I'm sure, in Riyadh. He says things he's probably pushed as well. Like, he's his own man, but there's a lot of people in that group of people that will be part of this narrative and fed these pieces. But
Frank Smith responded to Chris Eubank Jr.'s outburst during the press conference, mentioning that while Eubank had apologized to other prominent boxing figures like Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and Kalle Sauerland, Smith humorously pointed out that he was still labeled a scumbag in Eubank's eyes. He added, "I think he apologized to Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and Kalle Sauerland, but I'm the only scumbag left in the mix." The heated altercation between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn in Riyadh has reignited their long-standing rivalry, with tensions continuing to build. This rivalry has fans eagerly anticipating what could be a historic British boxing clash. Will this feud culminate in one of the biggest fights in British boxing? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.